Here's the deal. I would like for you to start our show on YouTube, like in a mode that where it doesn't look like I don't know what I'm doing every week.
Okay.
Like if you could start me at a super knowledgeable point.
Can you be super knowledgeable?
No. I'm just saying that it looks like that.
I can't like make things that don't exist. So let's talk about something you're confident about. Give me a firm start right now.
We're going to end up in some sort of counseling situation. Like if they have like podcast co-host counseling, I think we should really look into that.
I think we'd break the counselor. I don't know if they can make it. So give me something you're confident. How would you like to start the show? I will let you start. How you want to start this is our pre-chat before we start the show.
I'll be honest, this feels a little bit like a trap.
Oh.
So, well, I will begin with this. I'm glad we have a couple on the show today because the biggest thing I know this is weird, but the biggest thing that my husband and I are fighting over is covers.
Covers?
Do you fight over covers?
I don't.
Let me just say that my husband has to be tucked in like a newborn baby, like at the bottom part of the bed. He has to have the sheets tucked in, and I feel like it has to be tight to where not his little feet. He's got
normal size feet, normal feet.
But his feet are just like pinned down.
Yeah.
And the thing is, here's where the problem is for our marriage. We have one of those super thick mattresses. So I am fully under the belief that we have to tuck a third of our covers in under the corner of his bed. So in the middle of the night, when I can't get enough heat, I just yank it with full force over my head.
I'm the opposite. I don't want my feet trapped down, so I'm pulling the sheets out.
I can't stand it either. So every night, I'm not kidding, every night I have to go through cover training. Andy has blanket and cover training time where he's like, I'm tucking this in. Here is your side of the bed. Here is your blanket. Do not be yanking at this all night. Like, it's literally a training.
So this is the content that you feel confident about being how we start the show? All right.
Well,
it sounds like maybe you guys should get two beds pushed together.
Like Lucy
and Ricky.
Yeah. And then you could do whatever
then you just
you
slowly, like over the next few years, look, let's just do a couple inches between us. Yeah. Let's do a couple.
Well, it sounds like we're really getting to the meat of the conversation. So do you want to like start for real?
I do. Okay. Let's get started.
Hello, and welcome to the Almost Amazing podcast from the CityRise Network. Hosted by Jennifer Dennis and produced by me, Justin Kello, we're a podcast that was supposed to be focused on parenting, but we've kind of lost the plot along the way. Honestly, we don't know what this podcast is about, but we talk to incredible people who love Jesus, and our hope is to provide encouragement and fun whenever possible. If our lack of clear direction bothers you, we apologize, but no one is making you listen to this podcast, unless you're married to Jennifer. Andy, thanks for listening.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Almost Amazing podcast. We're excited you're here today. Thank you for joining us. We're excited about our guests today and the conversation, and welcome to the show. And Justin, welcome.
Hello.
How are you today?
I'm great. I'm going to take my headphones off because you sound great. I am doing awesome. I will say we had some exciting things happening on social media this past week with our content.
With our content?
Yes.
On social media?
Yes. So I decided to post a clip on the CityRise Instagram of Gene Pennington giving advice about prayer. And that video has 13.7 thousand views.
What?
Yes. Yeah. That's like the most views we've had in years, because sometimes things will blow up. But like Gene
we'll
Pennington,
have to tell Gene she
probably even know. But it was the Allison Finch tip about like sitting and pretending you're with Jesus, like imagining that you're with Jesus. And so it was exciting for me. I know that we shouldn't get excited about like social media numbers, but at the same time, I follow a guy who is like a social media expert for churches, and he was just saying that like every view is one person hearing about Jesus. Like, why would we not get excited about a number? It's not vanity. It's not just like, oh, look how great we are. Like the content we're putting out is either directly about Jesus or bringing attention to content that is about Jesus. Because everything we say in this podcast isn't about Jesus. But every time we talk to somebody, Jesus is part of the conversation. And so even if I post something silly about jury duty or something that gets 1,000 views or whatever, that might lead someone into connecting with the bigger picture, which is a great conversation about prayer or whatever we did that day. So it's just been it's just really great because like unlike other ministry things, like the wins in social media world can be few and far between, also like very impersonal because you don't get to see like a student like crying over his sin and turning away and repenting like you would in student ministry. And so every win I get in social media, I try and like build it up a little bit so I feel better about myself. But this one wasn't hard because it was specifically about prayer. She mentioned the name of Jesus and like 13,000 people saw it. So I'm like, okay, that's
cool. Exciting. So Jean was in church on Sunday, and I believe Ben, our young adults pastor, was preaching at West U, and he used a clip from Jean's podcast in the sermon. So she said she's just sitting there enjoying the sermon. She goes, and there I am.
Ben did not.
Big old screen.
Did not give her any warning, I'm sure.
I don't think he gave her the heads up. She's just like, so that was really fun.
Yeah. Well, I'll say this too. In the email that went out this past week that Roger sent out, he linked one of our podcasts. He linked our conversation with the Yeagers about student ministry because it's summer and we talk a lot about summer opportunities and student ministry and stuff like that. And so they linked that. So I think it's not just creating this content. For a while, it was like, why are we doing this? You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like, we're having fun, but like, what is the point?
Sure.
And of course, we have people that love the show and we really appreciate them. But now I'm seeing like, oh, wow, it's having value for our congregation. Once we went into the video mode, like, because we weren't in video for the first like,
I fought so hard. And you're like, we're going to have to put this
But now
video.
that we're in video, I think that God's gonna be able to use it even more for our congregation and beyond. And so I'm just really happy about that.
Well, I'm getting used to the video format.
Yeah.
Trying to.
Yeah. What about you? What are you up to?
Well, it's been a pretty good week. We had our level up party last night where our 5th graders move into the student ministry. Mm-hmm. And I have to admit, I was pretty sad. And so
none of them are you eager to see leave?
No, not really.
So it was a good class. It was a good grade.
It's a good grade.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I mean, we've known them since they were born. They've been with us all the way till 5th grade. And then they move in and I'm just looking at all of their faces and their parents. And it's like a little bit of a goodbye. But last night, for some reason, I was like fighting back tears.
Really?
I'm normally not that emotional, but I was a little bit, you know what? I think I'm getting I think because my kids are moving into different phases, I'm a little bit more reflective about how this time with them is so precious, right? And so, it was just a really sweet evening. Yeah. And I was too emotional.
Yeah. Well, the longer you're in a ministry position with children or teenagers, the more you see them grow up. And so I think that's it too. Like after your first year watching the 5th graders leave, it's like, hey, you're cool, but like I barely know you. Like I didn't know you when you were 1st graders. But this grade you've seen kind of grow up. So
regular listeners to the show will know what a big deal it is that I got to work the cotton candy machine. Nobody was around. Wow. No one was around. So no one could tell me no, or I've got this. Are you sure you know how to do this, Jennifer? Yeah. Lauren Grossman did sort of help me. Hey, turn on the motor before you turn on the heat. Mm-hmm. And if you smell something burning,
that's a bad sign.
Turn off the heat or the motor, whatever. And so, so let me just say what happened. The little cone things, I did not think to go ahead and separate those out or actually take them out of the saran wrap before we started. Okay. So I pour in the mixture, crank that thing up to hot and high speed. Yeah. But I can't get the cones out of the plastic and I can't get the cones apart from themselves.
Yeah. And so cotton candy is just billowing.
I mean, it's just like this huge, it is like an ocean of cotton candy in this tub. And I'm freaking out and like it's all connected. So I finally get one and I stick it in there and it's just like this huge loop of cotton. I mean, I'm like it's like a 3-foot big. Well, I can't put that between 2 cones. So the first kid in line has a cotton candy that's like bigger than his torso.
There you go.
And his responses.
Yeah.
This is awesome. He's like, I've never allowed cotton candy this big. Wow. I'm going to go show my mom. Oh, I'm like, hey, you're in student ministry now. Yeah. You don't have to show your mom that. Anyway, the next kid comes up. I figured out how to use it. You know, it's a little bit more of a regular size.
Well, I will say Was your goal to give them more sugar than they can handle? Because you also had a self-serve snow cone situation. Like Kona Ice is great because like most snow cone places, like they put the juice on and you're like, hey, can I get some more syrup? Like, cause they always like skimp you on it. Kona Ice is like, hey, here's your blank cup of ice.
Right.
Go nuts. And so was that a primary, like when you're planning this out, it's like, hey, goal number 1, prepare them for student ministry. Goal number 2, overwhelm them with sugar before we send them home.
So by the end of the night,
it seems like that might be part of your goal.
Kind of laid out.
Just from an outsider looking in, that's what it feels like. On the parking lot.
Well, we thought it would be, we wanted them to bring their friends. We wanted it to be kind of that wow factor of, you've got to come to this. We had a great group of kids come up. We had a good number too. It was really exciting. I went up, okay, so here's the deal with Kona Ice. Every time I go up, because I'm trying not to drink straight syrup from that machine, and I'm like, do you guys have any sugar-free options? This has happened like 6 times. And here's what they say. Oh, we don't have that this time. And I think they don't ever have it, period.
They're trained to say that.
But they want me to like not get all, why don't you guys have some sugar-free options, you know?
Yeah.
They know that'll happen, but if they say, oh, we don't have it tonight, it's sort of like, oh, well, maybe next time. I think
that's wild for like diabetics and stuff.
Maybe
like
next time.
Like if you'd had a kid with diabetes, like that's not fair.
And this last time was the first time where I almost said, has there actually ever been a time when you've been able to say yes to that question?
Next time, just buy your own, I guess.
I know. I'll like just start toting around my own sugar-free syrup. Like I'll have a sugar-free syrup backpack where I just whip it out.
Well, dude, I've known people with like before gluten and dairy-free stuff kind of became popular, they had to like carry their own bag of cheese to the pizza place. Like we go to get pizza.
Oh, yes.
They'd be like, hey, can you make me a special pizza with this goat cheese or whatever? Like
like, how long are you friends with those people?
You know what? I will say I dated a vegetarian for a while, and that did not last long. It was, I got a gift card to a steakhouse. I was like, I'll take my girl. No, I won't. Whatever. But
well, she could have a nice baked potato.
Yeah.
She wasn't the one. She wasn't
the one. Kristen will eat a steak. That's for sure.
When people start kind of layering out all of their things, I'm like, oh wow.
Yeah.
That's a lot to manage.
I'm excited about our chat today because the person that we brought in with his spouse, like he's new on our staff.
Yes.
He's already changing things in a positive direction for a lot of what I do in the digital world. And so I'm really excited to have him today.
And we just wanted to give our, audience, you guys, the chance to get to know them, hear their hearts, know how some of the reasons why we're so excited.
Because they're new to our church.
They're new to our church, new to the team. And it's just going to be exciting to spend this time with them. So I'm so excited to introduce for the very first time on the show, Wes and Kacey Mathew.
Thanks for having us.
Welcome, you guys. Thank you for being with us today. So I brought Wes on the show, and obviously you've worked with Wes a lot, so you'll have things to say. Wes is one of our newest members of our CityRise team.
Yep.
He is our CityRise production manager of all things visual and electromagnetic.
Electromagnetic. Is it direct? It's director, right? Production director?
Director of production.
Director of production. Hey, where's the name tag you just had on it?
They told me to tuck it in. So.
You do have your name tag on today.
What does it say?
Director
of production.
Director of production. So they left out the electromagnetic.
I like that, though.
Yeah,
I think it should be that.
Yeah.
So, Wes, please introduce Kacey and tell us about how you got involved in CityRise.
Yeah, this is my wife, Kasey. We've been married for 20 years. We dated 8 years before that.
Wow.
Wait, what? You dated for 8 years?
Yeah, I was supposed to be arranged to another Indian girl, actually.
Oh, wow.
We're going to get into that.
Yeah.
What a story.
We're just diving into the deep real quick.
Seriously, you were arranged? You were going to be in an arranged marriage.
That's correct, yeah.
Wow.
Not to me.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, go ahead and introduce and what you do, but we have to get back to this. I'm crossing my fingers.
Yeah. So,
oh, man.
I been contracting for CityRise probably for 15 years now in the background. And several months ago, we had an opportunity to talk about a full-time position. So now I'm the director of production for the CityRise campuses. And so I'm in charge of all the audio, video, lighting that goes out on Sunday mornings. And I help with all the broadcast and the live streaming. And we're creating a team. And so, we're growing and we're putting things out there for AV.
All right. And so, Kasey, you are helping to educate and to bring along your family. And how many, you guys have several kids, right?
We have 4 kids.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Several's about right.
It's just a start.
And they're involved in Trinity Classical program.
Yes, ma'am. Well, our daughters are 16 and 15, and they did Trinity Classical through the lower campus years, and they are homeschooled now. And then our sons are 7 and 5, and they are in Trinity Classical, going into 2nd grade and kindergarten.
Wonderful. You know, in this area, like most of our conversations about school, where to go to school, what to do for school.
End up in fistfights.
It's like, do you find that it's like the endless conversation?
It is an endless conversation. And I have a lot of mixed feelings about all of it because I actually was a public school teacher for 9 years before we adopted our first child and had kids. And I've stayed home ever since then. So I was never against public school. I'm still not against public school. We were both public school children, although I don't really think this is the best case for it. So it really wasn't anything I was seeking out. Like, I want to be a homeschool mom, or I really want classical education. It was just our unique circumstances at the time when our daughter Priya was starting school that we didn't feel like she was ready to be gone 5 days a week. And so we started looking for an alternative and ended up going to Trinity Classical and then loved it so much. And so it's just been this thing that sort of has morphed over the years. And our daughters did have some time in public school. One was there for about a year and the other for about 5 years. But we've just found this year that homeschooling is the best fit for them. And it gives us lots of flexibility with our schedule and just gives us time to do some of the things we'd like to do as a family. So it's been great.
Sure, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, we're so glad you guys are both here. So now, Wes, before we move on to what else you do for what this all means for CityRise. So you were really arranged. You were set up to arrange to marry someone.
Yeah. So what's the story of that? And then obviously how you and Kasey ended up not being that situation.
Yeah. I mean, basically it was more of, I think, a modern arrangement, you know, where my dad and mom picks out like 5 to 10 prospects, I guess. Is that appropriate? Mm-hmm. And we get to choose and talk about it, you know? And so, yeah, so that was happening my junior year in high school.
Your junior year in high school.
Yeah, well, it's because we became really good friends and they knew this was like a threat. They're like, uh-oh, a white girl's coming into the family.
Wow.
they're like,
we do not need that.
Wow.
Call the cousins.
Yeah.
So you guys met in high school.
We met our freshman year of high school.
Oh my goodness.
I was like a state science fair champion. And she was like a cheerleader.
Yes.
And she turned around and waved at me and then I was like, whoa. And then it kind of just went
I'm immediately in love.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, we were friends. We met in class, and he was so sweet and so kind, and very shy, but just different than most of the other boys around in high school. And he wasn't talking about the things they were talking about, and he didn't make me feel uncomfortable and ask me inappropriate questions. Mm-hmm. And so that just kind of always drew me to him. I knew that there was something really different about him. Of course, later I found out it was that he was a Christian, as I was. But it just made me really comfortable around him fast. And we were really good friends for a long time. And anyway, I don't know how much of the story you want to hear because it's a long story. But basically, I kind of always had a little crush on him, but he had never given me any indication that he had a crush. And so I'm very like conservative and old school. And my parents always taught like girls don't pursue and that sort of thing. So I never said a word. And we just were great friends. And then that kind of went on for a few years in high school. And so people would ask me like, so is that your boyfriend? Are you dating? And I'm like, no, we're just friends. And that really was the truth. We were just friends.
In this time, you also had a crush on her?
Yeah, for sure. I never said that out loud. I don't know if my dad's going to watch this. But
he's like still nervous to this day, even though we're married.
I'm mid-40s. I'm nervous about my dad's thoughts.
We've been married 20 years now. I can't complain on this.
Yeah.
So I definitely liked her a lot, you know, but I knew I was supposed to marry an Indian girl, so I wasn't pursuing any. And we're not supposed to date. There's no girlfriends. There's no boyfriends, nothing like that. So they'll get on to you if you try to bring a girl home. Yeah. So,
but are your parents Christians?
They're Christians, but culture trumps religion. So
right.
what are you doing? You know, they just
Right.
kinda-
So when did everything kind of change?
Well, it changed our junior year when we met up to play volleyball. A group of my friends met up with him and his cousins. And I had really never like had a chance to hang out with his family, his cousins and stuff. And so just at the park, we're all playing volleyball, having a great time. And one of his cousins kind of came over to me and was talking and said, "Oh, so you're Kasey." And he's like, "I heard so much about you," and saying all this stuff. And I'm like, "Really? That's funny," because Wes never says anything to me. And then he said, "Oh, Wes is so in love with you, but he can't marry you. He has a wife," you know, and then walked away. And I was like, "Wait,
He can't marry you. He has a wife.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I just really thought it was a joke. I'm like, okay, that was weird. So later, Wes and I had a conversation and I was like, "Your cousin said something really weird to me. Can you tell me about it?" So I told him what his cousin had said. And he said, "Oh, yeah, that's true."
I do kind of have a wife.
Yeah. I mean, he's just like, not right now, but yeah, my parents will pick for me and they don't believe in dating. And inside I was like devastated
Oh.
because we had been such good friends and I was kind of holding out like maybe one day, you know, and now to find out, wait, what? Is this like 2000 BC? What is happening? Like,
Yeah.
I really did not know that that was still a thing. I
Mhm.
felt like that was like in Bible times. And so I was so sad and we had like a moment and we were both crying and yeah, because it was sort of like, this can never be. And he just said, "You just have to pray. And if it's meant to be, you know, we have faith, it'll turn out."
Wow.
But in my heart, I was like, "Oh my goodness."
Yeah.
So, but in a weird way, I think it just made us even closer because
Mhm.
then at that point now, like the truth was out on the table. Like I
Mhm.
knew how he felt about
You
me.
knew there were
and
feelings.
We knew there were feelings. Yeah. And so now I'm like, now what do we do with this? So it was a crazy roller coaster. So my dad used to introduce Wes to people as, "This is the guy that Kasey's dating, but she can't say she's dating." So it was like the running joke. Everyone knew that we liked each other. Everyone knew that we were always together, hanging out, whatever. But you can't say you're dating somebody who has a wife, you know? I mean, like,
Yeah,
however you feel.
It makes it for a lot of weird
just
transitions
weird,
in the
yeah.
conversation.
So that went on through high school, but we did like homecoming and prom and all the things, all the high school things.
Wow.
And then I was going to be going to college at University of Texas in Austin, and Wes's mom was really set on him going to ORU and being a pastor. And so I thought when we go to college, like this will be the end.
I
And-
wasn't really holy or nothing. She just wanted me to be a pastor.
Your mom was just sending you
Yeah, she
to
just
Oral
sent me
Roberts.
Oral-
Yes. So I really thought like this will be the end. Because back then, I mean, this is how we're dating ourselves. We didn't really have like cell phones. I mean, Wes had a pager. So weird.
I was supposed to be a doctor.
There was no way for me. It's okay, babe. This was like, to me, the end, right? Like,
Yeah.
we're going to go our separate ways. We have no way to communicate. We didn't even have emails
Right.
back then. So about 3 weeks before I was moving in to my dorm at UT, Wes called me at my house and he said he had gotten a music scholarship to go to UT. And I was like,
Cool.
what? Oh my goodness. Like, so excited, but also like, oh my goodness. Now
Yeah.
what are we going to do? You know?
Yeah.
So we ended up both going to Texas and we were involved in the same church and the same Bible study and
Yeah.
same college ministry. It was amazing. We started a Bible study on campus called JC Productions.
Nice.
Such a weird name now,
Yeah.
but anyway. And yeah, so it was kind of like more of the same in college.
It's
Yeah.
still going on now.
Where's
25 years
Where'd you
later.
go to church?
In Austin,
In Austin.
EV Free,
EV
First
Free.
Evangelical Free.
Yeah. I went to school at UT. So,
You did?
Yes. Yeah. I was at
Okay.
Hyde Park Baptist for a couple
Oh
of
yeah,
years.
Hyde Park was.
Park
There were
was-
kind of
Had too
two,
many-
right?
Yeah,
That
yeah,
had
yeah, yeah.
Great
We're
college
having too many
ministries.
Longhorns on
Yeah.
this show. Like,
It's going to be your best show ever.
We've had a string of Longhorns because the previous one was Catherine,
funny.
and then before that was Kathleen. So I'm
Oh.
happy with it.
That's
there
great.
are a ton of Aggies around here. I'm always happy to have a Longhorn on this show.
We are
that's-
surrounded
yeah.
by Aggies.
Yes, I
true.
love that. And so then college, obviously, it just kind of happened. Like there's
So
your
there was more of
adults,
the same. And then there was, I think, a defining moment one time. We were juniors in college and I was, so we're maybe 20 or so
Yeah.
at this point. And this had been going on so long. And people would ask me, "So is this your boyfriend? Are you dating him?" And I would have to give the whole spiel. "Well, I'm not really, and I was over it. I'm like, okay, what's happening here?
Yeah.
Like we need to have a define the relationship
Yes.
moment, you know?
Boy,
And,
you got some real patience to go
yeah.
that long without.
I was like,
I would be
this
like
is-
20 minutes into a date. I'm like, where's this going? He's like, I
Where's
saw
the-
Wendy.
I mean,
Where's the ring?
I felt like I was 13 years old. Like I didn't want to make a marriage decision at 13
That's
or 14.
true. That's
I'm
a good
like,
point.
'cause
13.
If I say to my dad, there's a girl, that means I'm going to marry her.
Wow.
So I can't say we're dating. There's no in between.
That's a good
thing.
point.
Yeah.
That's an excellent
And
point.
he- this is the
There's a
same
high schooler
line.
kid
Yeah.
kind of like,
I mean,
this is my wife. I'm
This
like,
is the same line he told me for like 6 years. And I was like, listen,
It's not a bad line.
I'm
Makes
not
sense.
asking you to marry me in this moment. I'm asking you to like take a step towards this, or we need to cut this off.
Right.
You know?
Right.
And so our junior year of college, he still kind of denies this, but we were at the mall on a Friday after classes and looking through the sale rack at the Gap, and this Indian family walked in. And next thing I know, Wes disappeared. And I was like, what's going on? He was hiding in the clothes rack at 20 years old at
You
the Gap.
disappeared into the
He
clothing
disappeared into the
rack.
clothing rack.
I don't remember this.
What?
I believe it.
He is blocking
I don't
this
doubt it at
out.
all. I don't
He
doubt
is
it at
blocking
all.
this out. So I'm like, what are you doing? He's like, oh, they know my dad. I think they know my dad. And I'm like, we're at the Gap. We're not holding hands. We're not touching. We're not doing anything inappropriate. Like, we're just two people shopping the sale rack at the Gap. Like, this is so crazy. And so that was my like defining moment. We had a come to Jesus meeting at the food court of that ugly mall.
Wow.
And I was like, you can't even be seen with me. You're so terrified to even like let another Indian family know that you're hanging out with a white girl. So
Yeah.
if you're scared of strangers, how would I ever have confidence to think that you're going to actually talk to your parents about this?
Wow.
And so I just said like,
Okay, let me back up a little bit. There's probably only like 1% of Indians. You know, there's not too many Indians around here. I'm probably like the 1% of this CityRise Network.
Right.
wait,
So,
are you
so
saying?
we all know each other.
Oh, okay. I was about to say, there's like bajillions of Indians. What are you talking
But
about?
here in this community.
Here in this community. Okay.
So there's a high chance they know my family.
So you're saying this entire time your parents did not know you were hanging out with
Well-
one girl a lot.
I mean, basically, I was like, she's helping. She wrote all my papers in high school and
Wow.
college.
In college. Yes.
Wow.
So hopefully they don't revoke my degrees.
That's good. Good to have that on film.
Yeah. So yeah, she writes. So she was always there to help me.
Okay.
So-
Yeah, I was a classmate, you know.
Okay.
So it's not like I had never met his family.
Right.
They did know me and they knew we
Yeah.
were hanging out or whatever. But I really just think that honestly, they did not think Wes would ever
Right.
actually go against
Wow.
their preferences.
Wow.
I don't know
So
if this story's out. Is my
I know
dad
this
gonna
is.
be
I don't know. Is this what we're
I
supposed to be
love
talking
it.
about? I don't even know. Okay.
We're just hanging out.
I love
And so
this
that was the
story.
turning
My
point.
dad's
So that
gonna
was a
call
turning
me.
point. That was a
Okay,
turning point. I
Wes.
just said, look, you know, like we're 20 years old at this point. I mean, now looking back, 20 is nothing. But
Right.
at the time, I'm like, I'm 20 years old and you are hiding in the clothing rack. This
Yeah.
is so ridiculous. And so I just said, look, I'm not asking you to marry me. I'm not even ready to get married.
Yeah.
But I think that there is a process that needs to take place.
Uh-huh.
And the first step would be like, hey, let your parents know I may not want an arranged marriage. Step 2 might be, hey, I may not even want
She
to
was
marry
like
an
been
Indian
my
girl.
counselor.
Step 3 might be like, hey, I kind of like a white girl. And then I would be like, step 4.
Yeah.
So you just need to come to the point for step 1.
Yeah.
You know, whether or not you're marrying me or someone else, if you don't really want an arranged marriage, like you've got to start there
Yeah.
with your parents.
That had to be a really hard step for you to take, the first one.
Oh, for sure. I mean, I'm first generation here
Mhm.
in America, and probably one of the first ones to do an interracial
Yeah.
marriage.
Yeah.
And so to say this is almost like a cutoff.
Mm-hmm.
Like, am I willing to cut off the family?
Yeah.
Do your parents
Yes, sir.
live in the United States?
They do live in. My mom passed away 20 years ago, so
Oh,
that was
I'm sorry
actually
about that.
another
That's kind of part of the
part of
story.
how it turned a little bit.
Yeah.
My dad lives in Dallas, but yeah, they're still in the United States. They're Christian, but it's just he's the oldest of his family
Yeah.
of 12, and so it's like he's the leader, and if his
Mhm.
kids are doing this, it's kind of a shameful thing, you know.
Mm.
Mhm.
So it's a big thing. If I was going to do this, it's kind of all in,
Yeah.
Right.
and so I know she was ready to go all in. I'm like, I don't know yet. I'm like, let me think.
Did you write a letter to read to your dad? You're just like,
No,
hey, Dad.
Well, that would mean I would have had to have written it. I needed it to be like heartfelt.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
grammar.
looking back, I feel like I could have been a little bit more like gracious about it. But I think at that point, I mean, it wasn't like I had guys knocking down the door or anything like that. But I mean, sometimes people would ask me out like, hey, can we grab coffee? And I would just be like, well, I mean, I kind of
dating a married man.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, I kind of have this boyfriend, but he doesn't really know he's my boyfriend, and I just kind of was over it.
I was waiting to see what the bids were on the dowry.
Stop.
So the Indian culture, the women pays the husband money.
Get out, really?
So my cousin got like $50,000.
Wes, you are putting so much information out there right now.
My cousin got
I am dying.
$50,000.
So I was trying to see if her bid went up or something like that. I'm trying to
Stop.
like, negotiate right now.
Yeah. So I kind of gave him an ultimatum at that point. I was like, look, I just think this is unhealthy and let's just go our separate ways. And when you decide, or if you decide to pursue this, then let me know. Like, let me know when you had a conversation with your parents. So we broke up, I guess you can say. I mean, how do you break up with somebody that you're not officially, I don't know. The whole thing is so weird. But I was like, I think we need to go our separate ways. And it was so hard and so sad. And for like 3 weeks, my roommates were so mad at me. They were like, Wes looks like a little lost puppy on campus. He's so sad. You should call. I'm like, no, like he has to decide what he wants. And for my own sanity, I just need to like move on. But of course I was so brokenhearted and devastated.
Sure.
So about 3 weeks after that conversation, he did call me. So I was so happy he called, but also like, why are you calling me? Trying to be strong. And he's like, well, talk to my parents.
Yeah, I drove to Houston, talked to my dad.
I said, you did? I can't believe it. Oh my goodness. How did it go? Because honestly, he would tell me when I tell my parents they're going to be so mad, they're going to cut me off. And I just did not really believe. Yeah. I'm like, I just don't think that's actually going to happen. I think you've worked it up to be bigger in your mind than what it's actually going to take place. And then he was like, no, they responded exactly how I said they would respond. Wow. And they cut me off and they said, I have to move back to Houston and I'm transferring to U of H. And like, all of it blew up. And I was like, are you kidding me? He's like, yeah, they're so mad. And they're taking away like my funding, because of course our parents were helping us through college in some ways. And they're taking away my credit card, he told me, and I have to move back home. And I was like, oh my goodness, I'm so sorry. I feel so then I felt horrible because I never want to come in between his parents and him. And he was just like, it's okay. I feel better. The truth's out on the table. And
it's definitely freeing. Yeah. When you say the truth.
So did all that happen? You went back to Houston and started it. Wow. Okay.
Back to Houston.
And I think he was talking to the parents with the intention of giving them like a little piece of the truth, but
well, I just told them, hey, I'm dating Kasey. And I just said it. And then they, with a big old accent, he's like, yeah, we know. And then like, he's like, this like, and that was it.
Yeah, we know.
Yeah.
So they already knew it was coming.
They knew. So then they kind of prepped it.
But I think because he was making it sort of official with them and they see that as like
a big deal,
engagement or marriage, they were like, well, we don't approve.
Wow.
So we're cutting you off. So yeah, it was super.
So then I had to get a job at CityRise.
Yeah. So just how did you get to the altar? That's how I want to know. How'd you get to the altar? Yeah. Like, what was it?
What do you mean?
Like,
how did you get married?
How'd you get married? Like,
well, it still took a few years.
Yeah.
It still took a few years.
Yeah. So I had to get approval from. So we told the truth.
Yeah.
And I had to get approval from my dad.
Okay.
By this time, my mom passed away.
Okay.
And so it was just my dad. And so my dad was like, okay, we know you like her. It's been like 8 years, right?
Yeah.
Kind of like waited for 8 years, like the story in the Bible, right? Who is it? Whatever the Bible story is.
Okay, good try.
Yeah.
You didn't come on board as a pastor.
I didn't go to ORU. So it didn't work out. But 8 years, and he said, okay, you really like her. And so then he approved. And then, but his 12 brothers and sisters didn't. They didn't approve. They actually called me and said, we're in a meeting and we don't want our kids to witness this.
To come to the wedding.
And I was actually.
One of the brothers came.
Yeah, maybe one or two came. But I was so excited because I didn't have to pay for all of them to come to the wedding. Because I was like 400 people. You had to do a full course meal.
I'm so excited.
It was like, we had 1,000
up.
people on the guest list. So it went down to 600 to 700 people. Yeah. Indians' wedding is like a party.
Wow.
Yeah.
So it cut the list down. I was like, Kasey, we saved so much.
And I was crying and so sad and like devastated, like they're never gonna like me. And he was like, just do the math. Just do the math. Like,
just take the coupon.
So what's it like today interacting with your family? Like what
I mean, they're not like at our house every day.
Right.
But I mean,
they've come around.
They've met the children.
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
Yes. And even like 2 years after the wedding, actually, we didn't know that his dad was not communicating anymore with his brothers and sisters because he was offended that they did not come to the wedding. So it was like it totally flipped because he felt like if I gave my blessing on my son's wedding, then you had no right to, go against that. And I don't know, like culturally speaking, it's just very interesting because he is kind of the patriarch of the family, being the oldest brother of 12 kids. So after 2 years, we had to have this big family meeting. Yeah. He wanted them to apologize to us. And I said, that is not necessary. It's okay. Like I just at that point had trusted or, was leaning on the Lord. Like, Lord, I can't make these people accept me or like me. The Holy Spirit is the only one that can do that. And, I don't need to be his helper. And that's kind of the place I had come to make peace about it. Because it was sad for me and hard for me. But his dad was like, no, they need to apologize. And so we had this family gathering. I just was so uncomfortable. I'm like, they do not need to do this. This is unnecessary.
Like, hey, everybody, I made some cookies.
Yeah, I mean, it was crazy, but they all apologized.
Wow.
And so,
really?
Yes, they said, we're so sorry that we didn't come to your wedding and we didn't approve that just because.
And they still gave us wedding gifts that day. Too.
Yes, they gave us
wedding
wedding
gifts.
gifts.
To pay.
That's exactly what he said. He was like, we got the gifts and we didn't have to.
Well, let me ask you this. Like,
Oh my God.
obviously your cultural backgrounds are vastly different. So what role did your faith play in kind of like helping y'all find common ground? Like, I'm just imagining this like Romeo and Juliet, but culturally diverse couple. Like how did your faith play a role in bringing you two together? You said that you both knew you were Christians or, okay.
I mean, faith was everything actually about it. It really had nothing to do with anything else except for trusting God. And I mean, I combed through the scriptures myself because sometimes some of his family members would say that it was unbiblical. And I didn't want to do anything against God. So then I'm like, is that true? And I would look and I'm like, I don't get it. I don't find what you're referring to. And one of his uncles even said that the Bible says the light should not fellowship with the darkness. And I was like,
oh, wow.
You're like, I'm the white one here.
Yeah. And I'm like, he's going up.
I'm moving up in the chain.
So I was like, that is not talking about skin color. What are you talking about? So I think that there was a lot of use of scripture that wasn't correct or in context, but it would make me doubt. And then I would look through scripture and I would talk to my parents about it and pray about it because I did not want to dishonor God. That was like the last thing on earth I wanted to do. So when we couldn't find any reason biblically why we shouldn't be together, it just sort of became obvious to me, like, this is not a biblical thing. This is a preference. And that's fine. We all do have our preferences, right? And I get what they're saying, like they don't want him to lose his culture or whatever, even though that still makes me laugh to this day because I love all things Indian more than Wes loves all things Indian. Like I make him wear Indian clothes and I buy them for him. And it like, you know what I mean? So I'm like, they were concerned about something that wasn't even real.
I mean, so we grew up charismatic. She grew up really conservative. So my family, I feel like they took the scriptures real loosely. And so they would twist things to make it seem like this is wrong. And so then I would have her do research in the Bible and tell me, like, what's the truth, you know?
So you tell me.
Can you tell me?
Look that up.
Can you tell me Joyce Myers, Beth Moore?
Whatever.
Or feed me some stuff.
So what advice would you give to someone who feels confident in what God wants them to do, but like every other voice in their, you know what I'm saying? Like if someone's facing that sort of tension where they're confident in what God's calling them to do, but they've got these outside voices, what advice would y'all give to them having kind of like come through this journey together?
Oh, man.
Yeah, I mean, that's everything, right? Because you have to learn. We still have to use that discernment in our lives of like, what is the voice of truth? What's the voice of the Holy Spirit versus what is just cultural or popular or preference or whatever, fill in the blank, right? Because the truth doesn't change, right? And so I think the more I dove into the scriptures and I learned what the truth was and I was confident in what the truth was, it made me dig my heels in even more. Like if you come to me and just tell me the truth and say, biblically, we can't find any reason why you shouldn't be married, but we just don't prefer it. Say that, right? But don't try to use the scriptures in a way to conform to what you want it to be. Right. And so I think that has taken me a long way in my life personally, and even in parenting kids, right? When they come home, so-and-so said this, or so-and-so believes this, what do I say? I'm like, well, let's look at what God says, right? Because humans are very fickle. We change our minds all the time. And what's popular one day is not popular tomorrow. Yeah. But God's truth stands forever. It will never change. And we can like rest on it and put our confidence in it. So I think that's what at least gave me personally the confidence to keep kind of pushing forward in a like respectful way without just beating it over their heads, right? I mean, we waited a really, really long time. And I even left the country for a year to do mission work before we got married. You know, I just wanted to have like no regrets, and I wanted full blessing from his dad. I feel like even though I knew biblically we weren't doing anything wrong, I knew I couldn't go into the marriage feeling like his dad didn't give us our blessing, because marriage is not just about two people. It is about families coming together.
So I think that's really cool story. That's really cool, which wasn't part of the questions we were going to ask. So, but I think that's really cool. I find it interesting that you went to UT, but somehow you ended up serving with A&M for the last however many years. At Breakaway. Sure. And that's kind of where we're getting you from in some ways, because you were with that community.
Right.
Tell us a little bit about what you did with Breakaway.
Yeah. So at UT, I started a company called Pure Sound, and I just started it with a couple of partners for fun. And we did AV for some artists that came into town, like Crowder, Tomlin, Robbie C. All those guys came in and said, "Hey, do you have sound? Anybody have sound?" I'm like, "Yeah, I got stuff, you know." And so we started a little name. We did it. And then when we moved to Houston, the company just kept growing and growing and growing. And so then people would ask, "Hey, can you help me at this event, this church, this church?" And then Breakaway approached me from A&M, and they knew I was from UT. I was like, "I don't care." I was like, "You don't care." And so the guys at Breakaway said, "Hey, can you help train our guys, build our systems, get us going?" And I said, "Yeah, for sure. I'll help you do that." And so it was just for a favor for Ben Stewart and Jeremy McCaslin, two guys that were heading it up. And so I just did it for a favor for like a month. They was like, "Hey, you mind coming weekly?" I was like, "Yeah, sure. No problem," you know. And it was Tuesday nights, Breakaway Bible study. I guess college students, it starts at 9 p.m. So I'm like, 9 p.m.
Right.
So,
9 p.m.
So I either stay there. Before kids, she would come with me and stay there. It was easy, you know. And then when we had kids, it just got harder. So I drove back at like 2 a.m., 3 a.m. in the morning after Breakaway was over. But it's basically, if you don't know what Breakaway is, kind of like a mega Bible study kind of. Probably several thousand on a normal week at Reed Arena or Kyle Field or some other stadium. And then the big ones can get from 8 to 15,000 students.
Wow. And
so basically 17 years later, I've been helping them with the production side, tech side, AV, streaming, all over the place. Just wherever they need was, I was just filling in the roles, running sound, played drums a couple times, you know, just helping them. And so, yeah. And then a couple of weeks ago, I don't know if you call it resigned, I guess. Is the official term?
Retired.
Retired at 44, you know, whatever. So
that's kind of nice.
Yeah. And then CityRise opportunity came up, and I was like, yeah, let me fulfill the needs. And I was trying to do both, but it was so much doing 2 full-time things kind of. So.
That is a lot, 2 full-time things.
And then CityRise had a need, it had a hole that needs the same thing. They need production, they need training, they need new guys to come on board. And so this is what I'm doing. So yeah.
So we are, and I don't know if people know this yet, but we are ramping up the production side of CityRise. So we're doing a lot more video production, a lot more. It goes along. I know we're sitting here.
My first week, I got these cameras.
Yeah, we have these cameras because Wes got them right when he got here.
It's like,
he's like, these cameras aren't working. You got to get better cameras.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, I think that's so exciting. What kinds of things do you see happening maybe over the next few years, or things you'd like to see happen?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, right now, I am the only production staff. Everybody else is contractors or volunteers, and it's a small team right now, but the needs there's so many needs for production, especially with the whole digital church, kind of like our app, the websites, YouTube, Facebook. I mean, we're like pushing out to so many social media avenues that we need help. We need guys. And I want to take our quality to a next level too. Also, you know, I know we were just kind of doing things as best as we could with the team we had, but yeah, taking it to more broadcast TV quality is what we're trying to do. So trying to build a studio in the library at the moment right now, you know. And
I noticed that.
Yeah. So
I saw that. I think that, you know, I think the passion and the vision behind this is to see people all over the world be able to worship and come to a walking, real relationship with Jesus Christ from an online platform.
For sure, yes.
And so I think we've come to a time, and a lot of us are like, why are we pushing out of these walls? We love coming to church. But it's a vision which I think is exciting for much, much broader than brick and mortar of who can come locally, but people around the world who can know about Christ, because now it's at the fingertips, it's in your phone. We can really get the gospel out there in much more meaningful ways to a much wider audience.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we go to India and other third world countries. They don't have a house. They barely can eat, but everyone has a phone. Mm-hmm. So anybody can download an app just right there. Any non-believer, believer, they can open up the CityRise app. They can look at all the messages. They can look at all the podcasts. They can look at all the worship line. I mean, you get all the scripture right there. So spreading the gospel through technology is amazing. So.
It's really exciting. And Justin, are you working, or do you guys work on the same team? Or
I
you
barely
guys...
see Wes. No, we're in meetings every day together, it feels like. Yeah, Wes has really empowered my ministry more. So mine is more on the content creation side of job, like where I'm like creating like this. He is really helping with live production, but I benefit from that because the gear he buys for them, I get to use. The pieces of sermons that are becoming higher quality, I can take that and make content from it. So it's a lot of like, we work together closely, but we don't actually depend on each other. But I think we kind of equip and help each other out. But no, he's definitely already like something like these cameras. Like he's really helping us. And also as we're producing more original content, like you've seen through Rooted, Deep and Wide, all these things done over the last year, we're contracted with a company, which is a great partnership, but that is a limited partnership. We are looking to be done with them so we can do it ourselves. Like that's the whole point.
Exactly.
And Wes is a key part of helping us be able to produce content like that in the future, because knowing about lighting and sound and all these things, it's just beyond some of us. And he has a background and he has connections in the digital kind of like production world that's going to help us make this content. So not only live production, but the library of content we're creating to impact people is going to be easier for us to do with him around.
Ironically, in the library.
In the library. That's too.
So ironic. You have no idea.
I don't read. That's why I'm laughing.
Surrounded by books.
It's painful.
Well, my goodness, it has been so good to visit with you guys today. And I love the direction we took with your love story. And Wes later will probably ask to see the video if he can like cut some things out so it's not too weird. But thank you guys for joining us today.
Yeah,
Thank you so much for having us.
We have one final question at the end of the evening, usually. Did I just say the evening?
You said evening, but it is absolutely midday.
It's time to get on some of those brain vitamins. That is for sure. What is the most irritating thing that you probably do as a driver on the road?
Okay. And we'll answer this first. So y'all have a second to think about it. Most irritating thing that I probably do as a driver. Do you have an answer for this?
What do I think you do that's irritating?
No, for you. You've never seen me drive.
I'm mostly packed with things that irritate me about other people.
Okay.
But
so
I do kind of.
What is the question? I don't understand the question.
I do have the answer.
Is the question what irritates you most about other drivers, or what do you do?
Let me tell you what happens, and then you'll know how to answer it.
Okay.
Here's my problem. I get really irritated if I'm the one that has to stop at the red light. Like there's a whole line of people going and I get left behind.
Okay.
And then at that point, I just sort of check out.
Yeah.
I even start to look at my phone.
Yeah.
I start to disappear mentally. It's like I'm on a break.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking I have more of a 15 to 20 minute break, and the red light's thinking maybe a minute or two.
Okay.
So I know it drives people crazy when I'm totally checked out when the light turns green.
Oh, yeah.
And I sort of am completely unaware.
Yeah.
Until they start honking. Mm-hmm. Sometimes they'll just bump into my car a little bit.
So you're just asking for bad driving habits. What's your bad driving habit? Yeah,
what's your bad driving habit?
My bad driving habit, I don't know if it's irritating other people, but like I need to work on it. I can't be at a red light and not look at my phone.
So yours is like mine.
I can't have that 30 seconds of like, I'm just going to look ahead. Like, I'm
going to be reflecting on my life.
I'm addicted to it. And it comes out when I'm driving. Like, it's bad news.
Okay. What about you guys? What's your worst driving habit?
I'm the guy behind you that's honking at you.
Yeah.
I'm like so aggressive.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to calm down. I'm now that everybody's shooting each other, I'm not. I'm trying not to honk anymore.
I honked at someone this weekend. I thought,
like I get mad. I'm like, don't honk.
Yeah, so I'm trying with the family. I slow down, but by myself, I'm just like cutting you off and get out of my way. This is my lane, kind of deal. So I'm like super aggressive. Yeah, but I don't think it's a good thing. But I'm just saying,
no, yeah.
Right.
So,
Kasey, what about you?
I mean, I don't know, how irritating it is, but my worst habit is just passing things back and forth to the children and driving without hands a lot.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but like when the kids finish their snack, they're like, here, Mom. Like they pass me the trash and I like let go of the wheel and I take the trash instead of just saying like, keep it back there or whatever.
I'll get it later.
Pass me constantly. I'm reaching behind. I'm looking behind. It's a miracle that I'm.
I remember one time Edie and I were driving in the car and I was holding his hand. And then I was fixing my hair, and Andy just looks over and he's like, "What? What are you driving with? Yeah. What is happening?
Which hand are you using?"
It's my knee, Andy. It's my left knee. It's an excellent driver. And so, I was just thinking about what is the most annoying thing we do on the road.
That's fair. Yeah. Well, if you made it this far, thank you so much for joining us. We really had a great chat with y'all today. A lot of first of all, the encouragement about like following what God's plan for your life is, even when there's other voices kind of going against you, I think is really encouraging for those of us that have faced kind of situations like that or may face those situations. But we'd love for you to rate, review, and subscribe if you listened on a podcast app. If you watched on YouTube, we'd love for you to like and comment. It is free to do all these things, and it helps us in the algorithm. If you enjoyed the show, share the link with somebody. We'd love for you to share it with somebody that you know. And you can always email us at podcast@cityrise.org if you have any suggestions for people that we could talk to.
Well, thank you guys so much. And thank you, Justin. Welcome. And we hope you've had an almost amazing time on the Almost Amazing Podcast.
Thanks for listening to the Almost Amazing Podcast from the CityRise Network, based in Houston, Texas. CityRise is a partnership of church campuses, nonprofits, and missionaries devoted to lifting our city and the world by generously giving the gospel of Jesus Christ. For more information or to find a church campus close to you in the Houston area, visit cityrise.org.